In today's era, it's easy to forget what the golden years of railroading was like, before the airlines took over and luxury was a top priority when it came to passenger rail service. You can find several examples that preserve this time period scattered across the North American continent, but not many stand out as much as the Royal Canadian Pacific. Alongside the former KCS Bell, which resides in Shreveport, Louisiana, the RCP acts as one of two business trains on the year-and-a-half-old CPKC. We've had the privilege of documenting the RCP during the Final Spike Steam Tour, led by the 1930-built 2816 Hudson locomotive, while also riding aboard on its return trip north. But this would be our first time following the train with its classic pair of F-unit locomotives on the point. The RCP is stationed within corporate headquarters of Calgary, where we see the train being prepped for a trip out to Vancouver. The following days will find it traversing through the gorgeous terrain of Alberta and British Columbia. Bright and early on a beautiful Sunday morning, the RCP will be departing westbound. While we wouldn't be chasing this trip, we figured it fitting to see the train off before spending the entire day along the Lagan subdivision. We set up alongside the Bow River, where a bald eagle is perched right at sunrise on the hunt for some breakfast before our train makes its way through. Shortly after 6 a.m., Canadian Pacific number 1401 calls for a clear signal and eases its way along the river shore. Several days would pass before we would meet back up with the passenger consist in the small resort town of Revelstoke, British Columbia. Several hours into the night, the RCP has arrived into town from Vancouver. The business train will be tying down in the small yard tonight before continuing its return trip to Calgary the next morning. With the train being spotted into one of the legs of the Y, it will be serviced throughout the night in preparation for tomorrow. Departure time is slated for 6 a.m., and we'll be following the train throughout the Canadian Rockies for most of the way. I hope you'll be joining us in this video as we chase this train in its natural habitat. This is the Royal Canadian Pacific. The sunlight has yet to rise above the massive mountain ranges outside of Revelstoke in the little area called Greeley. The westbound searchlight signals down the line show red, indicating that the train is cleared through. The bright headlights soon breach the morning mist, and the day's long journey has officially begun. We jump ahead to Jumping Creek. The F units are notched up and can be heard from miles away as they battle the tough grades that lead to Rogers Pass. Leading the charge is CP 1401 and 4107. Both are GMD FP9A locomotives originally built in the 1950s for Canadian National. Both motors would find more work with Via Rail after their time at CN ended. As Via began retiring the F units in favor of the newer F40s, the 1401 would find a home at a short line in Nebraska that hauled grain before the CP would acquire the locomotive in 1998. The trailing number 4107 would find itself pulling excursion trains for the Ohio Central before being purchased by CP in the mid-2000s. In Glacier, the main line of the mountain subdivision has split into two tracks. Our business train is taking the Connaught track. The F units are painted in a heritage paint scheme that many call the Royal scheme. The silver and burgundy paint makes for a nice contrast against the green that acts as a blanket over the Rockies. The Royal Canadian Pacific was formed in the year 2000 as a subsidiary of the CP. The goal was to offer luxury excursions throughout the Canadian countryside. Even today, the train is still available for private charters. Along with the vintage set of FP9s, the passenger car fleet of the RCP is very impressive. They all come from various backgrounds, with some being built as far back as 1926, while the newest being built in 1960. Every single car has gone under heavy restoration and is carefully maintained to ensure the best experience possible for passengers. These cars offer views that you can't see anywhere instead of the rails, such as the view you see here at Surprise Creek as the train plays peekaboo over the bridge. The tri-light signals are a staple of the Canadian Transcon, with the vast majority of blocks being protected by them. The 1401 passes through them as it approaches Golden, where it will meet a westbound freight. As the Ottertail Creek flows below, the RCP makes the curve around the bend. With the massive mountains in the background, this is just one of countless angles along this railroad that looks like it comes straight out of a painting. Field marks the halfway point of today's journey. The yard here in town is where the mountain subdivision to Revelstoke comes to an end, and the Lagan subdivision to Calgary begins. Field is an unincorporated village that lies within Yoho National Park. Although the population is just under 200 people, the town is buzzing with activity from tourists all over the world at the visitor center and local businesses. The train has come to a halt on the east end of the yard and gives us the opportunity to observe the F-Unit's sharp paint scheme without the stress of chasing a business train. We can clearly see that timeless logo with the script lettering with the beaver standing on top of the shield. Down in Louisiana and other regions of the former KCS, many of the rail fans have gladly accepted the beaver into the scene, though a select few have taken the liberty to nickname him Bucky. While it's a fun joke that our friends in Canada have been great sports about, that isn't the beaver's actual name. Though if you ever meet someone from this region, there is a good chance that they'll quiz you on what the beaver's actual name is, so be prepared. If you already know the beaver's name, don't spoil it for everyone else in the comments below. Let them spend a good portion of their day trying to find out just like we did. With all of their luggage loaded up, the fresh crew begins to ease 1401 and 4107 out of town. The tourists in the area took notice of this unique-looking train, and many joined us to film the departure. While the train is far too short to properly show off the spiral tunnels in true fashion, we still deemed it necessary to capture the RCP emerging from one of the tunnels from the viewpoint just off of the highway. What better way to finish off a successful chase than to end it at Morant's Curve? Be sure to stay tuned for a future production where we go way more into detail for several spots that were seen in this video. We have a lot of great footage to share in these mountains, along with some in the prairies of Alberta. Until the next time, my friends, I'll be seeing you somewhere out there along the rails, and as always, thanks for watching.